Hey everyone, Jason Teichner, certified nutritionist, certified holistic health practitioner, certified hypnotherapist. This is Look, Feel, Be Healthy. So I was online yesterday and I was looking up more information on viruses just to see what everybody said, what the doctors say, what the mainstream doctors say compared to what actual doctors that have no agenda for this so-called pandemic have. And what prompted me to do this video is I looked at an excerpt from a medical book that says that viruses are parasites. Okay, and that's what prompted me to do this video, because even the average layperson knows a virus is not a parasite. Okay, the virus is not a parasite. There is no similarity whatsoever to a parasite. So that just got me thinking a little bit more with what I was already thinking about, which is the fact that much medical information in and we're not talking online, we're talking medical books, medical journals, peer-reviewed studies, universities, that much of this information is false. Okay, so why do they do it? They do it to bring forth their own underlying agenda. So the medical community, doctors, pharmaceutical companies, the government, they all work together to make more money off of sick people, getting people sick, keeping people sick, making more money off of people being sick. Now, most of us already know that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, the danger of this medical information and people that believe this stuff. So, for example, virus is a parasite, right? If you believe that, imagine the danger that comes with that. You're going to look at the virus, whatever virus that you have, as similar to having a parasite, right? And obviously, there's a lot of danger in that. Parasite is a microorganism, a virus is not. So I talked in another video about the fact that viruses are not alive. They have a genetic code just like a computer virus does, and that genetic code needs some type of toxin to actually be activated. That we have thousands of viruses on our skin and our bodies at any given time. But the reason we're not sick all the time, and these are viruses that were created, which I talked about in the last video, but the reason why we're not sick all the time is because it needs something to be activated. So that's my other video. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about this a little bit and put a link down below. The fact that there was an article written by a doctor in Germany. Go figure, in Germany, they basically treat people with natural medicine way more than they do in, here in the U.S. as well as other countries. So, so this doctor in Germany, and I'll put the link below, wrote an article for Scientific American. And the main part of his article was the fact that we have all this misinformation of what's in the the medical books, medical journals, peer-reviewed, and universities. He also writes about how much information is false on the internet, which we all know anyway. So I'm not really concerned about the false information on the internet. We all know there's a lot of false information on the internet, right? But when you're talking about medical books, universities, which are government entities, right? And a lot of times doctors that practice will not they won't ask questions, right? Just like we didn't ask questions in school when we were taught history. We know that about 50% of history in history books has been proven to be false, right? So why do they do this? It's to further their own agenda of, where they are telling us the world should go based on the so-called history, right? So it's the same thing in the medical community. These doctors are purposely lied to by these medical schools, purposely lied to. And the doctors that don't stand up eventually and look for other sources that are independently studied, that are studied by scientists other than the doctors that have the agenda behind them, such as nutritional scientists like myself, such as virologists, right, that go on to study virology and in a lab instead of study of viruses, instead of going on to medical school, treating patients and learning all this other false crap that they put in these medical books. So what this doctor in Germany found, you can, about 83 something like that percent of the information on the internet is false, which we can kind of already know. But in the medical books, anything with a medical attachment, university studies, peer-reviewed medical studies, medical books, as I mentioned, okay, anything that they print in the medical department of the universities, out of all of this information, do you know how much of it was false or had something false in it? I shouldn't say 100% false, but had something false in it. Over 50%. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Over 50%. So people, do not believe what you read in medical information that is connected to the government, that has that underlying agenda of making people sick and keeping people sick. This is the information they want people to believe so that the people feel that they have to rely on doctors. Okay? And like I said, in my last video, I gave an example of, how viruses are not what they tell us they are. And I just saw this, that in this medical book online, virus is a parasite. I'm like, oh, I've got to do this video. Because most people already know without even having to read anything that a virus is not a parasite, okay? Parasite is a living microorganism, a virus is not. So I just kind of wanted to do this video just to open people's eyes a little bit, as far as you cannot believe everything that you read, even if it's in a so-called reliable source. Where do history books go? History books go to schools. What are schools controlled by? Schools are also controlled by the government, okay? So there's a common theme here. Medical schools especially, okay? They're all these medical schools. It is the government entities that have to secure their ability to practice medicine. We won't even talk about insurance companies. We won't talk about the fact that insurance companies have, like I say, I'm talking about it, but I'll just mention it real briefly, that insurance companies force doctors to see a certain number of patients every single day. That's why you have the back-to-back appointments every 15 minutes. It is not the doctor's fault. It is the insurance company's fault. The insurance companies force these doctors to see a certain number of patients every day. And they say, if you don't, the doctor fights back and says, you know what? I need to focus more on every patient. I need, the appointments to be a half an hour apart, not 15 minutes apart, or I need the appointments to be an hour apart. The insurance company says, okay, well, then we'll drop you. That's the reality. Okay. So, there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, and then there's naive doctors. And the naive doctors are the ones that don't do the research outside of what they learn in the medical schools and the medical books, okay, and the medical journals, right? So, and when we won't even talk about how some of the studies are flawed, but that's also what this German doctor talks about too, is how a lot of the studies are flawed. So, we all kind of know that anyway. There has to be certain criteria, otherwise the study should be null and void, right? And so, I'm one of those people that's constantly doing research. I mentioned this in other videos. I go with facts. I go with science, matching up against what I learn from independent science information. Okay, I've also looked at medical information. Okay, don't get me wrong. I've studied a ton of conventional medicine, And a lot of it, just like this article says, a lot of it is true and matches with what I've learned from other sources, independent sources that don't have that underlying agenda. And a lot of it is false. And I've gotten to the point where I have enough experience where either I can look at something and usually, within a minute, I can tell you if it's true or not, if it's reliable or not. So no matter where it comes from, I don't care where the information comes from. I've done enough research on, on independent information to that didn't have an underlying agenda, and that was backed by science, and that was backed by the right kind of studies, and my own experience with my clients, and my own experience with myself. Okay, so I don't state anything as fact until I know it's 100% fact, and is definitely fact that in this article that over 50%, I think he says 50.9%, you'll see it, is has proven to be scientifically false. That's in the medical journals, medical schools, okay, medical books. So don't believe everything you read. Check it with somebody like myself, or somebody that specifically studies the things that you are looking for. No matter what that is, you could study a lot of different things. Find somebody that studies those specific things that you're looking for. Okay. I like to think I'm pretty broad spectrum with my knowledge of medicine as well as natural healing, and I can usually tell you what's true and what's not. On that rare occasion that I can, I'll send you to somebody who can. And so, I'm also constantly, like I said, I'm also constantly doing research. So just want to do a quick video about this. I'm going to have another video here pretty soon where I'm going to describe what we can do about this, but I didn't want to make this video too long, and I wanted to make this only about this particular subject. So that'll be my next video. But so check out the link below to the article I'm talking about. Also, check out my website in the description below, and my book in the description below, and I will see you in the next video.